Good morning, everybody. We are here to draw the Learning Fusion 360 Part 14. And this is, instead of the normal video with the Australian gentleman that everybody loves so much, we're going to do it this way instead because of the way he does things in this older Fusion 360. It just doesn't work for at least half the video of what you're going to be doing on this part. And so I thought I would just kind of make it on my own and maybe talk about some things while we're doing it. So let's go ahead and begin. And what I went ahead and downloaded from that gentleman is this right here. So this is part 14, and this right here is what we're going to be creating. Okay, and then if you look over here, here's all the dimensions that we need to figure out and things like that. And the problem that he had using his that was going to cause us issues was this angled surface right here. But for now, let's kind of, if you could, try to imagine this not being here and just being this flat object right here. And so we're going to start looking at this view right here, which is kind of a normal top view, right? And so it comes back here. It's got these little ears that come out, and we can add everything in a minute. But so let's go ahead and get started with this. And so open up your Fusion 360. And so here's some differences in the way he talks about doing things. Maybe you've already found a way that you like, and you're welcome to do that. But if we look at that, we just said that our top view is kind of gives us the most detail in terms of getting this part started anyway. And so we want to try to draw in that same plane here. And so that's this one right there. And how I like to start a sketch is you could go up here and click this if you want. But I've kind of gotten in the habit of using these right clicks. So I'm going to hover over that face, and I'm going to right-click on that face, that plane, saying that's where I want to get started. And I get all these cool options. So I'm going to create a sketch, and it goes right there. If you don't want your grid on there, that's totally up to you. But I'm going to roughly draw, and so I know some of you guys get freaked out. So I'll talk about it a little bit, but what we're trying to do is just roughly draw in a very rough sketch so that we can add things later on. Right, so I'm going to go to Line Tool. You could just hit L, click once, and drag it back. And now I'm going to hold my click button. Oops, I don't want to do that. I'm already going to go backwards. I forgot what shape I'm drawing. We can just add fillets later. All right, so let's go back here again. Click once, drag it out, click again, take it up, click again. And now I want this line to end at the same place as this dot. So I'm just going to hover over it. Then I'm going to drag it up, and I'm going to click again, go up a little bit, and now I'm going to hold it to get this curve. So I'm holding my mouse button, and I want it to be at the same point as this, right? Doesn't matter where, but I want it to be at the same point as the other one. So then I let go, come over here and click. Go a little bit past that, come back, find that, then end it on that one. So now I've got my face kind of drawn in there, and I might need to add some more things. So let's go back and just check at this. So we want those to be tangent to each other, good. And then once we start dimensioning, what we'll get to right off the bat is 15 by 45, meaning 15 is the width, 45 is the length. So I want to make sure first I'm going to hit escape so that I'm on my select tool here. Tangent and tangent, so those curves are all set on both sides. If they're not, you need to add this constraint so that you have a tangent symbol here, here, and here, 4 of them. All right. And so now let's go ahead and dimension. So I hit my D for dimension. From here to here, I believe should be 15. Let's go in and double check that. Good. And from here to here, it's going to be 45. And it's looking pretty goofy already, and that's okay. All right, and now the radius of those curves right there, and so this radius will also set the width of this tab, and that was 5. Okay. And then we're going to have this center line going down the middle, and so let's go ahead and add that. We'll see if we can do some new things with you guys. So I'm going to go to the Line Tool, and before I get started drawing the line, I'm going to turn it to a construction right off the bat. And I'm going to purposely not make it down the center. So I'm going to click right about here, make sure it's horizontal. Click to end there. I can hit this green tab. And now I've got this line. I'm going to make that my center line. So I'm going to hit escape, so I'm on my select tool. And I want this line I just drew, hold down shift. I'm going to select the origin. I want those to line up with each other. Alright, so now I've got my center line, construction line in the middle. But it's not really lined up with my drawing yet. I've dimensioned this line, so I'm going to use this as a reference because I haven't dimensioned this one yet. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit escape so that I'm out of there. And I'm going to select this construction line and this line that I dimensioned. And you guys haven't used this constraint yet, but it's the midpoint constraint. And so I'm going to click that. And so what I just told it was that I want this construction line to be at the midpoint, or in the middle of this line. And so now this and this is centered. So the next thing we want to do then is kind of start dimensioning some of this other stuff. So let's go back here and look. See if I can get this to open up here. Alright. So from this, we've got circles here. We can add those quick, but I want to try to get this 25 in there first. And so that's from the center point of those radiuses we made, is 25 to 25. Alright, so let's go ahead and hit D for dimension. And we know that from here to here, we want that to be 25. We got a little problem there. So I hit escape, and I can actually grab this and move it out. Right, I can move all this around. And we want this to be centered as well. Alright, so let's see if we can kind of make that happen. So let's go ahead and click this, and our origin point. Oops, that's not what we want. Okay, so that didn't work the way I wanted it to. Let's just do this the math way. So we'll go ahead and reference it using a dimension to get this centered from here to here. And I want that to be half of 25. So I can hit 25 divided by 2. And now I know that this and this is the same, and this is the same. So now we have this centered look that we're going for. Okay. What else do we need to do? We've got that on there. We've got that on there. So we got a lot of blue in this drawing still. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to try to make the center of this line right on top of the origin. Okay. So we're going to hit escape. Make sure that we're on the select tool. I'm going to select that line and my origin point. So I'm holding down shift. And then we want them to line up with each other. So I give it the coincident constraint. And then I can see that this one's not necessarily recognizing that we want it to be the same as it is over here. So we're going to hit escape. And I'm going to tell it I want you and you to be equal. All right? And then we also want this and this to be equal. And now you can see we've got everything constrained the way that we want it to. All right? We got our origin set, everything's black, so we are good to go on this sketch except for adding the circles. So let's go back and take a look real quickly at this, and we're going to add some 5 diameter circles. Let's go ahead and do that later. We can just draw this for now. Alright, so let's go ahead back here and let's hit E for extrude. Alright, here's where we are. I'm going to go ahead and take this downwards. Right? So I just told it I want it to go downwards, which means I'm in the minus category. And we want that to be 5. So minus 5 and enter. And now we've got this started. And there's kind of the beginning of our drawing. What I want to do now is, let's see, I think I kind of forgot to draw this back part back here. So maybe we'll go back into the sketch and add that part. So we can go over here. This is good for you guys to know how to edit it. And so we're just looking at this like normal. I'm going to double click on this one. And now it brings me back into my sketch where I just was. And I can grab the line tool, click anywhere on this line to start it, drag it out, make sure it's horizontal, click and hold. And we're going to bring this across, have it line up with where we started it there. And then I'm going to bring it down and touch that line again. And hopefully if you did that the way I did, you have 2 tangent marks right here saying that these are tangent to each other. If not, you got to use your tangent constraint tool and make those curves tangent. And then we're going to add some dimensions to this. So let's go back and look at this. What do we have here? So the radius of that curve is 0.25, so that means across there is 0.25. And then from this edge to that edge is 5. And let's see, what does it tell us? I'm now looking to see how far it is from the end of this to this center point here. I'm going to have to do some more digging here to find that out in just a second. So we'll just add the 2.5 and the 5 for now. Alright, so dimension, easiest one first, that's going to be 2.5. Alright, and then from here to here, it's going to be 5. And so that kind of sets everything else up for us. If this is all set down here, we just have to really describe how far we want this from this to be. I had to go back in and reference the video. I don't think this plan tells us how far in this is supposed to be. So I had to go back and look at the video, and he made that at 5. So let's go back here and add our last dimension. So from here to here, we're going to make that 5. Okay, and we are all set there. We can go ahead and finish our sketch. Now the only little problem that we have was that when we extruded this, it did not get this little part right here. So let's go back into our extrusion, so we'll double save that. Okay, and right here we have 2 surfaces selected, so we're going to get rid of that completely, and now we're just going to select that part of the surface. We're not going to pick that one. Okay, we're going to hit OK, and then let's go ahead and hide that sketch, and now we are good to go with that. And so now let's get into kind of this more difficult thing, and that is, well, let's do this first. Let's add our fillets first. That's a little bit easier. So I'll grab this and kind of bring this around. The other way to orbit your drawing is to hold shift and push in on the center mouse scroll wheel. Okay, and we're going to add fillets. Let's see what size those fillets are. So we have a fillet right here that's 2, and there, and there, and there. Those are all radius of 2 fillets. So we'll go up here to our fillet tool, grab this, grab this, grab this, and the one that's hidden right back there. So you should have 4 of those selected, and then we want the radius to be 2, and then we can hit OK, and we're good to go on that. We'll kind of return to this normal isometric look here. Alright, so now's where it gets a little bit tricky. We need to make this angled part. So if we go back and look at this, we're talking about this angled surface. And the video did a nice job of describing it, except that that's not how our Fusion works anymore. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through this. Might be a little bit clunky for me. I'm still kind of getting used to the program as well. And so what we want to do is we're going to need to construct. Right now we have these origin planes. There's only the 3 of them, right? And neither one of these 3, because this is straight flat, right? And this is the straight back, and this is the straight top-bottom, plane. None of these work on an angle. And so what we need to do is to create a new plane that is on an angle. And so we're going to go up here to construct, and we want to create a plane at an angle. So it's that one right there, okay? So basically what we have to do is give it a line that new plane that we're going to create can kind of pivot off of. And so we're going to select this line, right? And you can now see that right now it started at a minus 180, which is kind of like 0. That I need to kind of spin this plane, and so that's what it's asking me, is I can then set the degrees here. So let's check back in here and see what we got going on. And right there gives us the information that is at 45 degrees from this front line right here that we selected. So let's go in here, let's try to select 45 and see what that looks like. Okay, so we're getting the angle, but it's kind of 45 the wrong way. Right, so let's just add a minus in front of that, and now we get it to be the 45 that we want it to be. Right, so we can go ahead and hit OK. And now, instead of just those 3 planes, we have a 4th plane. okay? And so what you can do is we can right click on that plane, and we're going to create another sketch on that angled plane that we created. All right, so it kind of flips me upside down a little bit, and that's okay. And what we're going to do is draw from this line. All right, so now I just need to kind of worry about this surface. And so basically what I'm seeing here is it's the same width as this part, right? So it's 15 wide, okay? And then from that point to the center, 17. Got a curve going on the top up there, and then this little 7.5 millimeter hole that goes down into it, okay? And so let's go back to our drawing and give that a try. So we're going to start with a line tool, as we always do. And part of the problem here is, right, when I hover my mouse over it, it's not recognizing this line, right? I'm not able to draw from these lines. And so what I've got to do is basically start everything from my origin, which is on that point. Okay, so I'm going to do first is I'm going to create a construction line. I'm going to hover over the origin. I'm going to take my mouse out there so that I hovered so that it knew I wanted to be in line with them. I'm going to click there. So see, I've got a line started. It goes right into the origin and through, and I'm going to take it past. So it doesn't matter the distance. We just want a nice horizontal line that goes through the origin all the way across. And so now, when I turn my construction line off, I have something to reference. See how it'll stick on that, and I can start my drawing from that? And so I'm going to start anywhere over here. It doesn't matter. Click once, drag it out. Make sure it's vertical. Hold it to take a curve over. And then I'm lined back up with where I started my curve. I'm going to let go. And then I'm going to take it back up to the line, make sure it's vertical. Click. And then the last thing we need to do is also take a line from here to here to close that image. So you can see now it turned light blue, that it's a kind of a solid face now. And so now we can work on dimensioning this. All right. So let's go ahead and hit escape. And let's see if we can start with this line and make it its midpoint over the origin like we did before. So I selected that and that by holding shift. Okay, now I have that centered there. Okay. And now what I want to do is we can go over and grab our dimension tool, so that's D. And we can say that from here to here, we need that to be 15. And because I had this midpoint constraint, it brought both sides into where I want it to be. And then we know that from here to here was going to be 17. Right? And that automatically sets the radius of this at 15 because of what I did here. Right? And so then we can kind of, before we draw the hole or the circle or anything like that, let's go ahead and just select this, or excuse me, confirm this. All right, let's go back to our isometric view, and now let's push-pull that. So I'm going to hit E for extrude. I do want to grab this face, and I want to take it into this surface. And see how it's starting to kind of get confused? So what it's trying to infer is, hey, did you really mean you want to cut that? It's trying to read my mind and guess. So I got to go down here and say, no. I definitely want you to join up with this surface, right? And I can't get it to end perfectly there. So what we want to do is change how we're doing that, right? So instead of going on a distance extrude, let's go to an object. All right, now it says, okay, well, what object do you want to go to? Well, I want to go to this surface. And just by doing that and hitting OK, that fills that in, and now you can really see our part start to take shape. Okay, so let's go back and look at this. And then there's a couple issues I've had with this. Obviously, it didn't give me this measurement, so that's wrong. And then the second thing is if this is one solid part, and let's say I had to drill this hole, looking at these hidden lines, it gives you this angled bottom. Well, that's okay. We could do that. If we went back to our drawing and let's create a new sketch. So I'm hovering here, right-clicking, and creating a sketch on that surface. I can create a circle, and I can, just by hovering, that little dot tells me that that's the center of this. But if I wanted to use constraints, let's just do it this way. Hit escape, and then I'm going to hit this, and hold shift and hit this, and say, yeah, I want you guys to be concentric. We'll snap it back in that way. And then let's dimension that. And I can't remember what it was. 7.5. 7.5. And now I've got that hole, right? So I can finish that sketch. And then I could extrude it. And I could do the same thing. I could say that I want you to cut out of there and I could say that I want you to go to an object, and I could give it the same surface, and I could hit OK, and you can see then that it goes flat just like what's done in this drawing. Okay, and so let's kind of look at a couple things here. Let's hit OK, and so we think we're good there, right? I want to show you guys another new tool here. And so we can create what's called a cross-section analysis, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to go up here. We're going to hit construct again, okay? And maybe it's inspect. There it is. It's inspect, not construct. Inspect. We want to do a section analysis of this part, okay? And it's saying, well, how do you want to cut this to analyze it? And I can use any of these three planes, or I could go back to the new plane that I created if I wanted to and do that. But what we really want to do is cut it down the center. So we're going to select this plane, and I could orbit around and see the back of it, and it would look cool, but you can also just hit this button, and it flips the cut. Okay, so now you can see how we've cut this part, right? And so this is kind of what I want to talk to you guys about here. If you look at our drawing, and it now matches exactly, if I'm looking at this view, it matches just what I have here. The problem is, if you're machining this out of steel or aluminum or whatever we're going to decide to make this out of, it's impossible to drill a hole that ends at an angle like this. It just doesn't work that way. And so what we want to do is, just kind of fix that, really. So let's go ahead and hit OK here. We don't want to see this anymore. And so up here in this analysis zone, let's go ahead and uncheck this eye, because I don't want to see this at the moment, okay? And I'm not happy with how this circle went and how the extrusion, all that turned out. So we're going to go to our timeline, and we're going to go all the way back here, and I'm going to delete that sketch I made. Delete, yes. And then we also want to delete this extrusion. Okay, so now that hole's gone. That's the way we want it, okay? And now what we're going to do is, we still have this sketch there, and that's fine. And what we're going to do is we're going to create and use a hole tool. There it is. And we want to create a hole on this surface. Okay, so I collect that surface. And then really what I can do is I can spin it this way, or I can drag this dot and move it around and create this hole, right? So there's some cool ways to do it. And what we're going to do is grab this, and we don't want it centered in this whole face. We want it to be concentric with this, right? And it automatically kind of does that for us, right? And then we want our diameter to be 7.5, right? Oh, that's the depth, excuse me. So we need to change this number to 7.5, okay? And then our depth we're going to set to 17, right? And we're going to leave all this other stuff alone. But what it does now is it makes it a hole that could actually be machinable by a drill, right? And so we want to leave all this stuff alone. All that's good. This is if you wanted to make sure it was concentric to this, we could use these references here. So we're just going to hit OK on that. And now let's bring our cross-section back to life here. And that is what we want, because now what we've created is a hole down this face that we could actually machine with a drill bit, right? So now we can turn that off, and we just have to finish up our drawing. The only thing left to do is to add these little holes going all the way through. And those have a diameter of 0.5, and they are concentric with these, radiuses that we made out here on these tabs. So you could probably figure this out on your own, but just in case you're struggling, let's go ahead and do this on our own. So basically we need a sketch that's going to be on these tops of these surfaces. So I'm going to right click and create a new sketch. Alright, then I'm going to hit C for circle. I'm just going to draw them anywhere for the moment, kind of making sure that they're not centered actually. I didn't like that one because it was touching this, and it could then mess up what I was trying to do. And so let's draw it like that. Okay, now hit escape. I'm going to hit this one and this one, and I'm going to say that I want you to be concentric to each other, and I'm going to hit D for dimension, and I think we said that was diameter of 5. type in 5 and hit enter there. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I want this circle and this circle to be equal. And all I've got to do then is make this one and this concentric. Alright, I can finish those sketches. Let's go to isometric and let's do one final extrusion. And select this and this. And we want it to go through, instead of distance, to go through all. And then hit OK. And I think we are now done with our drawing. Let's go back and check this and just kind of make sure that we've got all the features. Looks like all the fillets are in, the angle is in. So you are all set with this. As a final step here, I'm going to turn my origin off, just because I don't always like seeing it there. What we're going to do now is I'm going to right click on body 1, and let's go ahead and give it a physical material. And we definitely want this made of metal. Aluminum, no, something like this is probably, you would probably bolt this down to something and then have like a rod or a shaft or a pole of some kind that fits in there and maybe spins or something. So it's a pretty heavy duty part. And so let's go ahead, and we've already used cast iron, so let's go to stainless steel. And let's kind of randomly choose, I like this 440C, where'd that go? Right there. Stainless steel 440C. So I'm grabbing it and I'm holding it, I'm dragging it over. I've applied 440 stainless steel to that. Now let's make sure we want it to look like what we do, so we close this. And let's change its appearance. Metal. And we chose stainless steel. So there's stainless. Brushed, polished. We'll make it nice and polished. Alright. Go ahead and close this. And now before we turn it in, we're going to right click and bring up our properties. I like to kind of zoom it in and bring it over close to my, bring it over close to this. I'm going to click off it just so it looks a little bit more normal. And then this would be what we have for you as your answer guide. And then this is what you're going to take your snip of and turn in. Thank you.